Everyone else received a safe match. Calm diplomats, brilliant scholars. Peaceful alien partners designed for balance the universe preferred. Stability, predictability, symmetry. Then it chose me, not a gentle envoy. Not a quiet scientist, it bound me to the wildest alien princess in the galaxy, and the real question isn't why. She was paired with me, the real question is, what did the universe see in me that I hadn't seen in myself? On pairing day, the sky above the city did not split open with thunder or divine trumpets. It flickered just once, a subtle distortion like heat rising from asphalt, except it carried the faint geometry of equations folding in on themselves. Every human on the planet had been warned that the cosmic selection would finalize cross-species bonds at precisely 14:0 coordinated Earth time. Most people treated it like a lottery crossed with a diplomatic exam. I treated it like a dentist appointment, necessary, mildly terrifying, and hopefully not involving blood. My friends had gathered in my apartment with snacks and irresponsible optimism. Aaron had already placed bets on whether I'd be paired with a calm aquatic philosopher or a six-armed engineer with boundary issues. Statistically, he said, waving his tablet as if it were scripture, you'll get something stable. 92% of human pairings are categorized as temperamentally moderate. Temperamentally moderate sounds like a polite way of saying boring, I replied. Boring is safe, he shot back. Safe doesn't challenge you to ritual combat. Before breakfast, at exactly 14, the air in my living room thickened, the lights dimmed, not from power failure but from something overriding the grid with superior authority. A thin vertical seam of blue-white light opened in front of my coffee table. My neighbor's dog began howling 3 floors down. Aaron whispered, please be moderate, please be moderate. The seam widened into a circular aperture, edges shimmering with quantum filaments that braided and unbraided like living code. A projection unfolded above it. Cosmic selection, conformation, species human, status bonded, companion classification royal, temperament index untamed, untamed. Aaron croaked, that's not moderate. Before I could object to the vocabulary, gravity hiccuped, something stepped through the aperture. She did not stumble, she did not hesitate, she emerged as if crossing a threshold she had conquered rather than been assigned. Tall, athletic skin, the color of polished green jade catching sunlight that wasn't there. Long blonde hair fell over her shoulders in a heavy cascade, and from within it rose elongated ears, elegant and unmistakably non-human, tapering back with a slight curve that gave her profile a predatory grace. Her eyes scanned the room in a single sweeping motion that felt like a tactical assessment. She wore armor that seemed grown rather than forged, layered plates of metallic fiber hugging her frame, faint sigils pulsing along the seams. In one hand she held a slender spear whose tip shimmered with contained plasma. Aeon fainted. Immediately, the projection shifted. Designation, Princess KY of the Twin Star Forest Dominion. Political tier, high strategic value. Bonding objective, mutual adaptive. Stability. She looked at me, I looked at her. The silence stretched. You are smaller than anticipated, she said. Voice clear, resonant, carrying the faintest harmonic echo, as if two frequencies overlapped. But your posture suggests defiance, acceptable. I slouch when I'm nervous, I said. It's more of a spinal policy then. Defiance, she tilted her head slightly. Ears shifting with emotion, you speak. Strangely, I get that a lot. The aperture snapped shut behind her with a soft implosive sigh. The lights returned to normal. My apartment tragically did not upgrade itself to royal standards. She walked past me without waiting for invitation, examining the walls, the windows, the ceiling. Her fingers brushed the edge of my bookshelf and the sigils on her armor pulsed brighter. This structure is fragile. It would not withstand aerial assault. That's comforting, I said. We were mostly worried about rent. She paused before the kitchen doorway and sniffed the air. You store preserved nutrients in that chamber. It's called a refrigerator. She approached it cautiously as if it might bite. When I opened the door, light spilled over her green skin, highlighting subtle patterns beneath the surface like faint leaf veins. She leaned closer. You keep prey chilled before consumption. Efficient. They're leftovers, I corrected. We cook things first. Her gaze sharpened. You weaken your prey with fire before devouring it. Sensible. Aaron stirred on the floor. She glanced down at him. Is he dead? Just overwhelmed, I said. Happens when royalty materializes unannounced. She considered this, then nodded. On my world, unexpected royalty often results in duels. Here it results in paperwork, I said. Much bloodier. Its own way. A chime sounded from nowhere and everywhere at once. A small hovering drone phased into existence near the ceiling, bearing the emblem of the Interstellar Integration Council. Holographic liaison appeared, a human woman in formal attire, smiling too brightly. Congratulations on your bond. The liaison chirped. Princess Kayela, welcome to Earth. We trust the transition was smooth. The portal was adequate, the princess replied. Your gravity is light, your atmosphere tolerable. Your chosen mate, she glanced at me again, remains under evaluation. Likewise, I muttered. The liaison pretended not to hear. As you know, this bond is designed to promote cross-species equilibrium. Emotional cooperation is strongly encouraged. Ritual combat is discouraged. The princess's eyes narrowed slightly. Discouraged, very, the liaison said. Quickly, extremely. Please review the cohabitation guidelines provided in your neural feed. The drone flickered and vanished. The princess turned to me. Algorithm binds us for balance. Explain your strengths, human. I opened my mouth, closed it. I make decent coffee. I can assemble flat-pack furniture without crying. I once fixed a server outage by turning it off and on again. She stared at me. It was a big server, I added defensively. She walked toward the balcony. With a single fluid motion, she vaulted onto the railing and looked down. 12 stories without flinching. Your territory is densely populated. Many potential threats, mostly accountants, I said. Occasionally pigeons. She leapt down from the railing into the living room without touching the floor first. Her boots emitted a brief anti-gravity pulse. Lowering her gently, she studied me again. You do not appear suited for conquest. Thank you, but the selection does not, she continued. It calculates beyond instinct. Therefore you possess hidden utility. I've always suspected that, I said, probably buried under student debt. She approached until she stood close enough that I could see faint golden flecks in her irises. Up close, the difference between us was undeniable and yet strangely subtle. Human shape, alien presence. Her elongated ears twitched slightly, as if catching frequencies beyond my hearing. You are not afraid, she observed. Oh, I am, I assured her. I'm just prioritizing not embarrassing my species. A faint smile touched her lips. Quick and sharp, humor as defense. Mechanism interesting. She removed her spear and extended it toward me. Hold. This, I hesitated. Is this a trick? If it were, you would already be incapacitated. Fair point. I took the spear. It was heavier than it looked, humming with restrained energy. The tip flickered dangerously close to my curtains. Careful, I yelped. She stepped closer, adjusting my grip with precise movements. Control is not about strength, it is about alignment. Weapons hum softened in my hands. She stepped back. You learn quickly. Survival instinct, I said, very human. Outside, another faint flicker crossed the sky, barely noticeable. Her ears snapped upright. You saw that too? I asked. Yes. Her expression shifted from curious to focused. The lattice trembles. The what? The cosmic selection network. It resonates across dimensions. It should be stable. I swallowed. Are you saying our intergalactic dating service is glitching? She did not understand the metaphor, but she understood instability. If the lattice destabilizes, bonds fracture, alliances collapse, worlds return to isolation. Well, I said lightly, though my pulse had quickened. We've known each other 10 minutes. Let's not let the universe fall apart on our first day. She looked at me for a long moment, then unexpectedly she laughed. The sound was clear and bright, cutting through the tension. You speak boldly for someone so fragile. Fragile but persistent, I corrected. She inclined her head slightly. Perhaps that is why you were chosen. Aaron finally sat up, staring at us. Did I miss the part where we panic? Working on it, I said. The princess extended her hand toward me, palm open. Her skin glowed faintly in the apartment light. If the lattice falters, we investigate together, I asked. Together, she confirmed. I placed my hand in hers. Her grip was warm, firm, undeniably real. For a moment, the hum of distant quantum threads seemed to echo through the air, subtle but present, like a cosmic heartbeat slightly out of rhythm. I had expected moderate, predictable, safe. Instead, I had been paired with a wild alien princess whose skin shimmered green under Earth's dull ceiling lights, and whose long ears caught whispers from the fabric of the universe. And somehow, despite the flickering sky and the trembling lattice and the spear currently leaning against my couch, I found myself grinning. Okay, I said. Let's try not to break the galaxy. The sky flickered again the next morning, subtle enough that most people blamed satellites or weather balloons or whatever it is humans blame when the universe behaved suspiciously. I was halfway through explaining toast to a royal alien when the kitchen lights dimmed for half a second. Lyra's elongated ears angled sharply toward the ceiling. There, she said. I saw it. I replied, though what I saw was more a feeling than a sight, like the air inhaled and forgot to exhale. She stood by the window, green skin luminous in the pale morning light, blonde hair falling over one shoulder in a way that would have looked serene if not for the armored gauntlet still covering her forearm. She had refused to remove the armor entirely. One does not disarm in unfamiliar territory, she'd informed me, while analyzing my couch for structural weaknesses. The cosmic selection emblem hovered faintly in my peripheral vision, an after-image of the bond embedded whatever dimension thought it had authority over my dating life. It pulsed Irregularly now, not with panic but with uncertainty. Lyra closed her eyes. The faint sigils along her armor flickered as if sinking to a distant frequency. The lattice trembles again. Not randomly, it is being strained by what? I asked. She opened her eyes. That is the question worthy of a princess. I gestured toward the toaster. Before we solve interdimensional sabotage, can we address breakfast? You threatened to hunt something in the park, I assessed. The park, she said calmly. The small furred creatures are too trusting. It would be dishonorable. Squirrels appreciate that, I muttered. A soft chime echoed through the apartment, and a thin beam of blue light formed near the ceiling. The Interstellar Integration Council drone materialized again, projecting the same overly composed liaison. Good morning, bonded unit, the liaison said brightly. We're conducting routine stability assessments. Minor fluctuations have been detected in the selection lattice. Nothing to alarm you. Your definition of minor is optimistic, Lyra replied. Coolly, the liaison smile tightened by fraction. The fluctuations are within acceptable variance. Please continue your cultural integration activities. Cultural integration, I repeated. Yesterday she tried to fortify my balcony, a proactive approach to domestic life, the liaison said, and then the projection flickered just once. A distortion rippled across her image before it stabilized again. As I was saying, the signal cut entirely. The drone dropped 2 in before recovering, then vanished. Lyra and I stared at the empty air. Minor, I said, very minor. She moved instantly, crossing the room and gripping my wrist, not painfully but with urgency. The interference is local. Local as in Earth, local or apartment. Local, she tilted her head slightly. Listening with senses I did not possess. Both, I glanced around my entirely normal, entirely non-royal living room. You think the lattice disturbance is centered here? Her eyes met mine. I think it is resonating with us. That was not comforting. Before I could respond, the air above the coffee table shimmered, not a clean portal like yesterday's ceremonial arrival. This one tore open unevenly, threads of light snapping like overstressed wires. Jagged oval formed, revealing not another room but a corridor of pure geometry, shifting hexagonal plane stacked into infinity. Oh, I breathed. That's new. From the unstable rift, something small tumbled out. It hit the floor with a metallic clatter. Lyra stepped in front of me automatically, one hand lifting as if to summon her spear from thin air. I placed a hand on her shoulder. Wait. The object on the floor was roughly the size of a football, spherical but segmented, its surface etched with the same sigil patterns I'd seen on her armor. It twitched, then projected a faint holographic grid that flickered erratically. She knelt beside it. Relay node, she murmured. Forest Dominion design. You're telling me your people dropped space equipment in my living room? It did not drop, it was displaced. The node emitted a sharp burst of light. Symbols spiraled upward, coalescing into a fragmented message. Voice crackled through, distorted. Princess Kyriella, Laddie's destabilization accelerating, bond resonance detected. The message cut off in a burst of static. The rift above the table snapped shut. Silence followed, thick and heavy. I exhaled slowly. So good news or catastrophic news? Lyra's expression had shifted from curiosity to something sharper, something edged with responsibility. My world is aware of the disturbance. They are monitoring our bond. That's flattering, I said weakly. She rose too. Her full height. It is not flattery, it is scrutiny. I rubbed my temples. Okay. Let's assume this isn't coincidence. The lattice glitches. A Dominion relay appears here. The message mentions bond. Resonance. What does that mean? She studied me as if weighing whether I could handle the answer. The lattice pairs for balance, for stability, but sometimes two variables create amplification instead. Amplification. Like emotional intensity. She blinked. No dimensional feedback. Ah, that she paced slowly, armor whispering softly. With each movement, our temperaments are not aligned in the conventional sense. You are adaptive but chaotic. I am disciplined but volatile. The algorithm may not have predicted the magnitude of our interaction. That's the nicest way anyone's called me. Chaotic, I said. Her lips twitched. You attempted to cook nutrient strips in a device meant for reheating bread. That is chaos. It's called innovation. The relay node on the floor pulsed again, brighter this time. A three-dimensional lattice structure projected upward, lines of light forming a web. Several nodes along the web flickered red. Lyra crouched beside it. These are bond anchors across nearby systems. See how they fluctuate. The instability radiates outward, radiates from where. She looked up at me. Oh, I said. From us. She nodded once. Resonance between our neural signatures may be stressing the lattice. That seems unfair, I protested. We've barely argued. You challenged my assertion that hunting in the park was appropriate. Because it was. Her eyes narrowed, but there was amusement beneath it now. Precisely. I knelt beside her, studying the projection. If the lattice is like a network, maybe it's not built for dynamic variance. Maybe it expects pairs to settle into predictable patterns, and we are not predictable, she said. You vaulted off my balcony to assess wind vectors, I reminded her. She considered that it was efficient. The projection flickered violently. One of the red nodes blinked out entirely. Lyra's hands shot out, fingers dancing through the holographic lines. Her armor's sigils flared, interfacing directly with the relay. Another bond is severed. My stomach tightened. Severed as in permanently, temporarily perhaps, but the lattice weakens. I swallowed. Then we fix it. She glanced at me sharply. You speak as if it is simple. It's not, I admitted. But I've spent years debugging systems that insisted they were perfect. Turns out nothing is. This is not a flawed application, she said coolly. It is an ancient, interdimensional construct, older than your civilization, which means it probably hasn't had a software update in a few thousand years. She stared at me, trying to determine whether I was serious. I'm mostly serious, I added. The relay pulsed again, and for a split second the air around us shimmered. I felt it then, a faint vibration under my skin, like standing too close to heavy machinery. Lyra inhaled sharply. You feel it now, she said. Yeah, I replied quietly, like the universe is humming. That is the bond channel, she said. It is intensifying. The vibration grew stronger. The projection above the relay expanded, filling more of the room. Lines of light stretched toward us, connecting to faint outlines that hovered around our bodies. This is new, I muttered. Lyra stepped closer to me, not out of fear but calculation. The lattice is attempting recalibration on us. Yes, the lines of light brightened, converging at the point where our shoulders nearly touched. Pulse surged outward, and for a moment I saw not with my eyes but with something deeper, a vast network, spanning stars, threads linking species, worlds, civilizations. Then it snapped. Back into the room, the relay dimmed. The vibration subsided. We stood in silence. Well, I said finally, if that was recalibration, I'd give it 3 stars. Lyra exhaled slowly. The lattice is not merely observing us, it is adapting. Is that good? It is unprecedented. I scratched the back of my neck. I've always wanted to be unprecedented, just not on a cosmic scale. She looked at me, really looked at me as if reassessing data. You are not overwhelmed? Oh, I am, I said cheerfully. I'm just choosing not to scream. Her laughter returned softer. This time your species is strange, coming from someone who brought a plasma spear to studio apartment. She inclined her head, point conceded. Outside, the sky flickered once more. But this time it did not feel like a glitch. It felt like a breath. Lyra stepped to the window, watching the horizon. The instability slows because of the recalibration, because the lattice is compensating for us, I said. For us, she confirmed. I joined her at the window, side by side, human and alien princess, staring at a city that had no idea it was momentarily responsible for interstellar equilibrium. Next time the universe decides to adjust itself, I said lightly, could it schedule an appointment? She glanced at me, green skin glowing faintly in the morning light, long ears catching frequencies I would never hear. Where would be the honor in that? I smiled despite myself. You're enjoying this? Her gaze remained on the sky, but her voice carried a hint of warmth. Perhaps the relay node gave one final soft pulse and went dark. Dormant but not dead, somewhere beyond sight, ancient threads realigned. And in my entirely unfortified apartment, a wild alien princess and I stood a little closer than before, the galaxy subtly shifting to accommodate the unpredictable mathematics of us. The third flicker did not wait for morning. It came at night when the city was quiet and human confidence was at its lowest. I was asleep on the couch. Apparently, royalty required the bed for strategic elevation. When the air turned cold and metallic, I woke to the sound of glass vibrating. Lyra was already standing, armor fully manifested, blonde hair braided back in a tight warrior's coil. The sigils along her green skin glowed faintly beneath the surface, as if something inside her answered a distant call. It begins, she said. That's not a comforting way to wake someone, I muttered, pushing myself upright. Bond mark in my peripheral vision flared painfully bright. For the first time, it did not feel like a connection. It felt like pressure. The relay node in the center of the room activated on its own. No gentle flicker this time. It erupted into a lattice projection so vast it pushed through walls, through ceilings, rendering my apartment transparent to the web of interstellar threads. Across the holographic network, red fractures spread like cracks in ice. Lyra's jaw tightened. The anchors are failing. How many? Too many. As if summoned by crisis, the council drone phased into existence, flickering erratically. The liaison's image appeared fragmented, voice skipping. Princess Bond unit. Laddie's core destabilizing resonance. Spike trace to your pairing. Define. Destabilizing, I said sharply. Cascade. Collapse probable, if uncorrected. All Cross-species bonds will sever within one standard cycle. The image dissolved into static. Silence pressed in around us. Lyra looked at me not as an evaluator now, not as royalty assessing utility. She looked at me as a partner. The laddie's core exists in a pocket dimension. She said it can be accessed through a synchronized bond channel. Meaning we go inside. I stared at her. Inside the ancient interdimensional matchmaking engine. Yes, and you're saying that like it's a reasonable Tuesday activity. Her lips twitched. It is not Tuesday. Close enough. Another fracture tore across the projection. A nearby bond anchor winked out entirely. Okay, I said, inhaling slowly. What's the plan once we're in there? She lifted her chin slightly, stabilized the resonance with what ducted tape with us. That was the part I had been avoiding. The lattice wasn't failing because of an outside enemy. It was reacting to amplification. Our amplification, our temperaments, our arguments about hunting squirrels, our improvised humor under cosmic stress. The system had been built for symmetry, not for dynamic growth. Lyra, I said quietly, what if it's not breaking? What if it's evolving? Her elongated ears angled toward me. The lattice pairs for balance, I continued, but balance isn't static. It shifts. Maybe we're not destabilizing it. Maybe we're forcing it to update. She studied me, green eyes reflecting the collapsing web around us. You propose we alter an ancient construct older than my civilization. I propose we stop trying to fit into its expectations. Another violent pulse shook the room. The relay projected a narrow beam of light between us. Lyra extended her hand. I took it. The beam expanded, enveloping us in cold brilliance. For a moment, I felt every thread of the lattice brushing against my consciousness. Millions of bonds, millions of lives linked across stars. Then the apartment vanished. We stood in a vast expanse of shifting geometry, endless planes of translucent light, folded over each other, forming corridors that curved into infinity. At the center hovered a crystalline sphere, the size of a small moon cracked with glowing fissures. The core, Lyra breath. Threads from every direction fed into it. Flickering chaotically, a voice resonated, not spoken but transmitted directly into awareness. Imbalance. Detected resonance exceeded parameters. Lyra stepped forward without hesitation. Parameters are flawed, the voice pulsed. Again, correction required, severance. Protocol initiating across the vast web. Threads began retracting. Not today, I muttered. Lyra glanced at me. You have strategy, sort of. We approached the crystalline core. The closer we got, the heavier the pressure became, like gravity multiplied by expectation. It's trying to force us into predefined equilibrium, I said through clenched teeth. It expects predictable harmony. Lyra's voice remained steady. We are not predictable. Exactly. The fissures across the core flared brighter. A surge of energy knocked us backward. Lyra planted her feet, armor blazing. We must align with what I shouted with each other. She reached for me again. Not ceremonial, not tactical, intentional. The moment our hands locked, the pressure shifted. The bond mark between us ignited, not painfully this time, but powerfully. Memories surged. Her arrival, my terrible toast, the balcony assessment, the laughter over energy drinks, not perfection, not symmetry. Growth. The core pulsed violently. Adaptive variance detected, non-standard. Harmony. That's right, I said, grinning. Despite the chaos, non-standard closed her eyes. I felt her discipline, her fierce autonomy, her royal certainty. She felt my improvisation, my stubborn optimism, my refusal to panic, even when I absolutely should. Instead of forcing alignment, we allowed contrast. The resonance stabilized not by flattening our differences, but by synchronizing them. The cracks across the crystalline sphere stopped spreading. Threads across the network flickered. From red to gold, wreck. In progress, the voice intoned. Lyra's grip tightened. It is learning about time, I replied. The sphere's fissures sealed, not disappearing but reshaping into branching patterns more flexible than before. Across the infinite web, severed anchors reignited. The crushing pressure lifted. Silence settled. No longer heavy but vast and calm. Redefine. Accepted. Balance updated. Bond. Classification. Dynamic resilience. I exhaled. Dynamic resilience. That sounds impressive. Lyra's laughter echoed through the dimensional expanse. Bright and victorious it is. Light engulfed us. Again, when it faded, we were back in the apartment. The relay node lay dormant. The sky outside was still. No fractures, no flickers, just quiet. The council drone phased in once more, this time stable. The liaison looked stunned. The lattice has recalibrated across all systems, she said slowly. Bond metrics have shifted to incorporate adaptive variance models. You're welcome, I said. She blinked. You altered a construct that predates recorded galactic history. Minor adjustment, I replied. Software update. Projection vanished without further commentary. Lyra removed her gauntlets, at last letting the armor dissolve into shimmering particles that absorbed back into her skin. Without it, she seemed no less formidable, just more present. You have changed, she said softly. I've noticed, I admitted. Before pairing day, I had wanted moderate, predictable, safe. Now I had stood inside the mechanism that governed interstellar destiny and argued with it. You challenged an ancient intelligence, she continued, not with force, with conviction. I also made several jokes at inappropriate moments. Humor is a weapon, she said seriously, a subtle one. I smiled. You're getting better at it. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint golden flecks in her eyes again. You are no longer merely persistent, she said. You are formidable. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever called me. Outside, the city lights flickered, not in instability, but in ordinary human rhythm. The bond mark in my vision settled into a steady glow. So I said lightly, what does a wild alien princess do after saving the galaxy? Her elongated ears angled thoughtfully. We fortify the balcony, I groaned. Of course we do, but I was laughing, and when she reached for my hand again, it wasn't because the lattice demanded